On a scorching summer day, after a hurricane, the global temperature suddenly dropped by 20 degrees. I know that the apocalypse is coming soon. The reason I am so certain is that I have experienced the same thing in my past life. The sudden drop in temperature seemed like a signal. A month later, a new virus rapidly spread among the population. Infected individuals will quickly turn into mindless zombies. Driven only by their instinct to feed, humanity has fallen into a crisis. The climate is extremely cold, food is scarce, and many people die from freezing and starvation, while all the supplies I desperately gathered were taken away by my childhood friend. She locked me outside the base, her face twisted with rage. "Zhang Ting, I've had enough of your hypocritical self. We grew up together, so why does everyone like you? We work at the same place, yet your income is 3 times mine. Why is that?" Before being completely engulfed by the tide of corpses. The last thought that crossed my mind was, if I could start over, would definitely stay far away from Du Xiaoxiao. Du Xiaoxiao and I grew up together. We completed elementary school, middle school, and high school together. After the college entrance examination, I went to university in Haishur, and later naturally stayed on to work. Du Xiaoxiao, on the other hand, stayed in our hometown. I heard that after graduating from high school, she got married and had children. And her life has been quite stable, but one day, Du Xiaoxiao suddenly came to me from her hometown, saying that her husband was abusive, and she had barely managed to escape. Remembering our childhood bond, I let her move in with me and introduced her to my workplace. Due to her insufficient education, she could only do some basic jobs, and her income was much lower than mine. But what I didn't expect was that my good intentions would become the reason for her to resent me. After confirming my rebirth, I quickly applied for annual leave, then cancelled my apartment and packed my bags, boarding the train leaving the city. It's not that I have a saintly heart and plan to let Du Xiaoxiao go, rather, I cannot afford to waste time on her. Every minute and second in the following month is precious. I opened a short video platform and found a streamer I had previously followed. He is a real estate agent in a remote small town, often posting information about property rentals and sales. At the beginning of the month, he posted a video of a house for sale. It was a villa, beautifully constructed and decorated, with the only drawback being that its location was in the mountains, over 30 kilometers from the nearest town, and the only route connecting it to the outside world was a suspension bridge. Although daily travel is very inconvenient, when the apocalypse arrives, this will become the greatest advantage. After years of hard work and frugality, I have 700,000 in savings. If I want to buy a house in Haishur, I can't even gather enough for the down payment. However, this villa is only being sold for 80,000, and paying in full wouldn't be a burden at all. According to the agent, this was built on a whim by a wealthy businessman who wanted to enjoy a leisurely retirement in the countryside, but after living there for a short time, he found it uncomfortable. So he decided to sell it at a low price. That's how willful rich people are. I made the decision on the spot. I want this house. However, I'm a bit timid, so please introduce me to a few skilled workers to build the wall for me. The agent, afraid I might change my mind, took me all over the place, and in just one day, he completed all the paperwork, besides the house payment. I also gave him an extra 2,000 yuan as a red envelope, and he patted his chest, assuring me that he would get the job done beautifully. The wealthy businessman is someone who values quality of life. The house is fully equipped with all necessary facilities. Not only does it have a separate generator, but there is also a well dug in the yard, meeting basic living conditions, citing the possibility of wild beasts in the mountains. I had the workers build the walls twice as high as normal, and I hired a few elderly women to thoroughly clean the house before quickly moving in with my simple luggage. In the wilderness, there are no so-called disputes over land. I enclosed a very large yard and had workers build a sunroom in the yard, while on the other side, I constructed a large pig pen and also built a coop for chickens and ducks nearby. The workers looked at me with indescribable expressions. What was once a nice villa had turned into something unrecognizable. But I didn't care at all. After all, in the aftermath of the apocalypse, being able to fill my stomach is the most important thing. In the sunroom, one half is sown with corn seeds, and the other half with vegetable seeds. I transplanted 2 peach trees from a fruit farmer, and then went to the market to buy a pair of piglets, 10 chicks, 10 ducklings, and 2 pairs of rabbits, along with chicken, duck, and pig feed, filling an entire room. Meanwhile, the shelves I ordered online have also been delivered. I assembled them in the room I had prepared in advance, and bought 10 large freezers in one go, filling them with various fish, shrimp, and meats. After doing this, I called the owner of the supermarket in town to request a large supply of goods: rice, flour, cooking oil, salt, seasonings, ham, canned food, pickled vegetables, instant noodles, chocolate. Anything that can be stored for a long time is welcome. Additionally, I also purchased everyday items like toilet paper, sanitary pads, soap, shampoo, shower gel, and even towels and basins in bulk, because I needed so much. Some items required the supermarket owner to restock temporarily. He indirectly asked me what business I was planning to do. I replied seriously that it involved national defense and military secrets, so I couldn't say more. The boss looked at me with respect and, indeed, did not ask any further questions. He even found 2 strong delivery men to help me deliver the goods for free. I was so exhausted every day that I hardly had time to pay attention to anything else. Naturally, I had no idea that during this time, Du Xiaoxiao was going crazy trying to find me. After I terminated the lease, the landlord came to collect the property. At that time, Du Xiaoxiao had just returned from a business trip and found her belongings inexplicably thrown outside. She was very angry and called me, only to find that I had already blocked and deleted her completely. Because my income is high and I felt sympathy for Du Xiaoxiao, taking care of her expenses after her divorce, such as alimony. I paid for the rent and daily expenses like water, electricity, and gas. Du Xiaoxiao lived comfortably, never having to pay for anything herself. Rent in Haishur is not cheap. Losing me is a big spender. She certainly wouldn't be willing to let it go. She borrowed someone else's phone after much effort, and finally managed to contact me, starting with an aggressive question: "Zhang Ting, where have you run off to? Why did you cancel the lease?" I replied calmly, "I took a vacation to travel, and as for canceling the lease, it's obviously because I plan to buy a house." Du Xiaoxiao gasped in disbelief and said, "Are you crazy? You still want to buy a house? Do you know how much housing prices are in Haishur? Can you afford it? I've saved up a few million over the past few years, so buying a smaller place outright wouldn't be a problem. I certainly know that housing prices in Haishur are expensive. With my savings and capabilities, I can't afford a house, but I said that on purpose." Sure enough, upon hearing such a response, Du Xiaoxiao became even more agitated. "What am I supposed to do if you cancel the house? You need to call the landlord and renew the lease right now. Do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with me." I ignored her, hung up the phone, and continued working. The weather will be extremely cold for at least a year after the apocalypse, making it unsuitable for crop growth. I have already stockpiled many blankets and thick clothing, and there is a fireplace and air conditioning in the room, but the sunroom and pigpen need some additional insulation measures. I attached the insulation cotton and foam boards to the inside of the shelter with a nail gun, then covered the outside with plastic sheeting, and finally secured it with wooden boards and bricks. Considering the frequent rainy weather in the future, I also installed supplemental lighting and a thermostat. In the evening, I received 2 large delivery packages. Since I had given prior notice, the delivery guy would directly bring the goods to the suspension bridge and then call me, and I would take my tricycle to bring the packages back. This time, it was medicine. I have almost bought every medication available on the market. After all, in the post-apocalyptic world, medicine has become more precious than gold. With this shopping spree, my funds have been rapidly depleted, but I don't care at all. Even if I run out of my 700,000 savings, I still have my credit cards. A month later, these cards will be useless, and no one will care whether the numbers inside are positive or negative. As I watch the villa being filled day by day, I feel a bit more confident inside. This time, I don't have to rely on anyone, nor do I need to please anyone. I can live well on my own. On the last day of July, a heavy rain began, lasting for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. After this heavy rain ends, the real apocalypse will arrive. I wrapped myself in a raincoat, stepping through the muddy ground, and used a chainsaw to cut the steel cables of the suspension bridge. After the severance, this villa became an island, and from then on, I could only spend my time in solitude, but I did not feel any sadness. Sometimes, Human hearts can be more terrifying than zombies. After returning to the villa, I cleaned the chicken and duck coops and the pig pen as usual, and added feed for them before finally having time to sit down and eat something. I cooked myself a bowl of noodles, added some chopped green onions, and sliced 2 pieces of ham. There is a television in the villa, but the signal seems to be poor, only a few channels can be received. While eating the noodles, I listened to the news and learned that this heavy rain seems to be global, and the temperature has been continuously dropping. Experts predict that this year's abnormal weather will inevitably lead to reduced crop yields and rising food prices, among other issues. On the 5th day, the heavy rain finally stopped, but the weather did not clear up, and the temperature did not rise. I saw some fragmented information on the TV and my phone, an outbreak of madness in one place. A man gnawing on a companion in the street, an outbreak of a strange disease in a community, multiple residents wandering the streets with obvious aggressive tendencies. The virus began to spread. 2 days later, the situation completely spiraled out of control, and the television had no signal, just a screen full of static. The radio occasionally had some sound, but it was mostly reminders for people to stay home and wait for rescue, with no more effective information. This global disaster was the first experience for all countries, and no one had the experience to cope with it. Having anticipated that such a situation might occur, I had prepared in advance by stockpiling an old-fashioned projector along with a large basket of pirated discs. Even if I watch one every day, it can last for several years. Besides, I'm not that free. After all, I'm a complete novice in breeding and planting, and there's still a lot to learn. The online courses I downloaded in advance and the books I purchased are enough for me to study for a long time. Fortunately, the chickens, ducks, and piglets are doing well. They eat, drink, and gain weight. As for those 2 pairs of rabbits, it goes without saying that shortly after I bought them, I noticed that one of the female rabbits had a swollen belly, probably already pregnant. I vaguely remember that rabbits are very prolific creatures, if I can raise them well. I won't lack for meat in the future. Although this villa is in a remote location, it is far from towns and almost devoid of people. Now, I have even cut off the only suspension bridge, and probably only birds with wings can fly over here. This period has been fulfilling and peaceful. Occasionally, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I feel a bit dazed, as if I am not really in a post-apocalyptic world, but the outside world is indeed in dire straits. I received another call from Du Xiao. She called from an unfamiliar number, her tone urgent. Zhang Ting, have you returned to Haisher? Where are you? I'm blocked by zombies. You need to find a way to come and get me. I held the receiver close to the grill, letting her hear the sizzling sound of the meat cooking. There's no time, you're on your own. Before my rebirth, I never realized that Du Xiao was such a jealous person, but now that I know, I must, within my capabilities, give her the greatest stimulation. Ignoring Du Xiao's hysterical screams from the other side, I wrapped the roasted pork belly in lettuce, dipped it in sauce, and stuffed it into my mouth. With one bite, the juices burst forth, fragrant and not greasy, so delicious that it made me want to swallow my tongue. Living alone is not boring at all. I spend a lot of time every day feeding the livestock, cleaning, and taking care of the crops and vegetables in the sunroom, busy as a bee. I once read a saying in a book, crops do not deceive. As long as you work hard and put in the effort, you will definitely reap the rewards. I think it makes a lot of sense. As the days go by, my skin has become rough, my palms have developed calluses, and I often get blisters on the soles of my feet, but my strength has increased. My endurance has improved, and my movements are more agile and nimble. I really like this change. After all, in a post-apocalyptic world, looks can't be eaten. Strength is the hard truth. The temperature continued to drop, and finally one day, I woke up early, opened the door, and saw a layer of white snow in the yard. This year's winter has come earlier than usual. This is not good news. The cold and hunger will make human survival even more difficult. I have already experienced this once in my previous life. Haisher is a first-tier city with a very dense population, especially in the community where I rent, which has an occupancy rate close to 100%. After the outbreak of the zombie virus, Du Xiao and I were almost trapped in a pile of zombies. We struggled to hide in the house for more than 2 months, eating all the food we could find. And just when we were cold, hungry, and about to reach a dead end, we finally waited for the rescue team. They called themselves the Free Corps, equipped with weapons, and under the banner of accepting the uninfected, they took us to a shelter base. But the days that followed were not much better. The rescue of these people is not out of kindness. The operation of the base requires a large number of worker bees, and we serve as such a role, with too many monks and too little porridge. If you want to eat, you have to work, usually, after a whole day of hard work. What you get is just a pitifully small rice ball and a bowl of clear porridge that can reflect a person's shadow. At night, we squeeze together in a large dormitory to sleep. During the most resource-scarce times, 3 people would share one blanket, but to survive, we can only stay here. Outside, zombies roam and the cold wind is biting, making it impossible to survive. I climbed to the top floor of the villa and used binoculars to observe the surroundings. It has been over 2 months since the apocalypse began, and I still haven't seen any zombies nearby. Occasionally, a few zombies can be seen wandering on the opposite shore, but I'm not worried at all. There are at least 10 meters between the 2 shores, and below is the rushing river. As long as they don't grow wings, they won't be able to come over, but things with wings are impossible to guard against. A few days later, one morning, a helicopter wobbled and flew low for a long time before finally crashing near the villa. After much hesitation, I decided to go out and take a look. What if the pilot was already in trouble, and the smell of blood might attract danger? I put on a full set of football protective gear, grabbed a fire axe, and set out on my tricycle. There were 2 people in the helicopter. When I arrived, one person had already lost all signs of life, while the other was lying in the snow, with a long, winding trail of blood beneath them. The tricycle could only carry one at a time, so I loaded the body onto it and took it to the edge of the cliff to throw it down. By the time I returned, the other person had regained consciousness. He was leaning against a rock, with blood on his head and chest, looking at me with a very wary expression. When I saw his face clearly, I was momentarily so shocked that I couldn't speak. I recognized this person. His name is Chin Yu, and he is also from the military corps. For some reason, after the apocalypse, many such groups have emerged one after another. They do not belong to the national military. They exist somewhere between formal and informal, having built many bases to shelter refugees from various places. Chen Yu is the leader of another brigade and a hot topic among us worker bee groups. After a day of labor, curled up on a cold bed with empty stomachs, the topic we talk about the most is Chen Yu. I heard that base has great food, with rice buns at every meal and at least 3 servings of meat each week. I really want to go to Chen Yu's base. Everyone wants to live in a time when they can have enough to eat, but that is impossible. The bases are independent of each other, and worker bees are also seen as a resource, with not much freedom. I recognize Chen Yu, but Chen Yu does not recognize me. One reason is that he is originally a public figure and has visited our base several times. The second reason is that he saved me. At that time, we not only had to take on various tasks in the base, but also take turns going out to search for supplies. We would take the base's vehicle to a designated location, which could be a supermarket or a warehouse, and each person would frantically gather supplies with a pocket, returning to the vehicle within a set time for a unified retreat. If we encountered zombies, it would be a matter of life and death. That time, I was trapped in the warehouse with another young girl, blocked by zombies. If it were just ordinary zombies, the 2 of us would rush out. After all, having survived in the apocalypse for so long, there are no innocent flowers among the living. But that zombie was exceptionally large, standing over 9 meters tall, with muscles bulging on its arms, making one suspect that it was probably a professional fitness trainer or boxer in its previous life. Facing a zombie of this caliber, there is basically no chance for a strong charge, but the time to evacuate had come, and we heard the sound of car engines starting downstairs. Filled with despair, and worse, the zombies found us, just when the 2 of us were about to fight to the death. Chen Yu appeared. He split the zombie's skull with an axe and then kicked it down the stairs. Later, I took Chen Yu's car back to the base with that girl. Chen Yu also had his team give us some supplies. It's the rule at the base that if you don't bring back supplies when you go out, you won't have food the next day. I'm not a particularly conscientious person, nor would I decide to repay a debt without considering the consequences just because of a rescue in my past life. But one thing is certain, Chinyu cannot die. Of course, not just because he is a good person. Before I died in my previous life, I learned a secret. The true leaders behind the Freedom Corps are actually foreign forces. They are building numerous containment bases with the aim of splitting apart the Hua nation during the natural disaster. And Chinyu is an undercover agent for the military. However, the higher-ups in the base have already received secret reports and have begun to suspect his identity, planning to silence him. So Chinyu must survive. At least I have to survive to bring back the information I have obtained. Although my character is not great, I can still distinguish right from wrong in such important matters. Perhaps my appearance, wielding an axe and fully armored, was too strange, and Chinyu remained silent for a long time. I had to explain, "Your companion is already dead. It's not appropriate to leave him here. I have already laid him to rest." Chinyu asked, "Who are you?" "I am a resident living nearby. I heard some noise, so I came to take a look." "Aren't you afraid of zombies?" "There are no zombies here." I pointed to the cliff. "The bridge over there is broken. The zombies can't get across." "How about you? Can you walk by yourself?" Chinyu struggled a few times to prop himself up but couldn't stand, so I used a tricycle to pull Chinyu back to the villa. There were some bottled water and compressed biscuits on the helicopter, which I also brought back. Food is very precious now. Every little bit saved counts. Chinyu was seriously injured, with a hole in his head and many wounds on his body. The helicopter crashed. Surviving is already a stroke of luck. I only have some basic medicine here. Chinyu treated his wounds himself and then asked to borrow a clean piece of clothing from me. "Thank you." Perhaps I was too quiet all the way, which made Chinyu a bit strange. "Don't you have anything you want to ask me?" "I really don't have anything I want to ask. Having lived another life, there are some things I know better than he does." But to dispel his doubts, I still cooperatively asked, "Are you from the military?" "There are no signals on the TV or radio, and I don't know what's going on outside." Chinyu said he came from the refugee base in Haishur, and this time he was out for a rescue mission, but unexpectedly the helicopter malfunctioned. I pretended to be very surprised. "There is a refugee base in Haishur. Can I go there?" Chinyu shook his head. "It's very safe here, and there's no shortage of food. There's no need to leave. Life in the base isn't as good as you think." "That's the truth." "That's true." I smiled and said, "I usually like to be alone, so I really can't adapt to living in a group." I cleared out half a room on the first floor for Chinyu to recover. The reason it's half a room is that all the rooms in the villa have been converted into storage, filled with various supplies. Even the room where I sleep is filled with cans and tissues. After settling Chinyu and letting him rest well, I closed the door and went to check on the rabbits. The 2 pairs of rabbits in the cage have already given birth. It's too cold outside, so I temporarily moved them inside the house. The reproductive ability of rabbits is astonishing. In this litter, the 2 female rabbits gave birth to a total of 11 baby rabbits, all of whom have not yet opened their eyes. I was working while sorting out my thoughts in my mind, according to the timeline. Chinyu has just recently risen to the leadership level of the base and should not have been suspected yet. Should I remind him that there might be a spy in his team? Even if I said it, would he believe me? There's another thing. When Chinyu crashed in his last life, no one came to rescue him. How did he survive in the cold wilderness? My existence is already a variable. Will there be more variables? I steamed rice and sliced ham for dinner, bringing a portion to Chinyu's room while I ate in the living room as usual. The television played apocalyptic movies, volcanoes, tsunamis, mutated monsters, and fleeing humanity. This scene has a certain realism to it. The leftover food was poured into the pig trough. I cleaned the bowl and took out the feed from the storage room. After people are fed, there are still chickens, ducks, and pigs. This is the work I have to do every day. Chinyu had opened the door at some point. He quietly watched me and suddenly said, "You have too little vigilance." Of course, I wouldn't easily trust a stranger, but someone chosen by the country to be an undercover agent deserves a bit of trust in terms of character. Moreover, Chinyu won't be here for long. He has more important things to do. There is no competitive relationship between us in terms of resources. Chinyu pointed to the supplies piled up in the room. "It seems you knew the apocalypse was coming all along." I deliberately feigned surprise. "How is that possible? Who could have predicted this? But you are not from County X." Chen Yu hit the nail on the head. You speak without an accent, your farming skills don't seem very practiced, and you just happen to appear in such a remote place with so many supplies. Is it all just a coincidence? With keen insight and cautious thinking, it's no wonder she was selected as an undercover agent by the country, but I had already thought of what to say. I am indeed not a local. I originally worked in Haishur, and after resigning, I plan to become a content creator. It's not a solution to keep working for others, who doesn't want to be their own boss and make big money. This clearly involves Chen Yu's knowledge gap, self-media, yeah, pastoral life, self-sufficiency. Themes like this can easily go viral. You must have seen it on short video platforms, right? Chen Yu showed a look of astonishment. Is that acting? I nodded, of course. Most of it involves hiring actors with a script. I bet all my savings, and I didn't expect to encounter such a low-probability event as the end of the world. Fortunately, I stocked up on some supplies, otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do. It's truly a case of misfortune and fortune coexisting. Chen Yu is very clever. It's not easy to lie in front of him, but I don't particularly need his trust. I saved his life. Not only out of consideration for the greater good but also with some selfish motives. Someone like Chen Yu is destined to be in a different world from mine. It's unrealistic to try to establish a connection, but there will eventually be a day when the zombies are defeated, and the country will return to stability. If I can become somewhat familiar and gain even a little bit of favor, my life will be much better. One must always consider the future. Thinking of this, I spoke more gently. First, focus on healing. No matter what, your health is the most important. Although there was an extra person in the house, my life didn't really change much. Chen Yu was too injured to leave the room, while I had a lot of tasks to do every day. I originally wanted to make my presence felt more, but in the end, apart from delivering 2 meals a day, we hardly had any communication. After all, being a former soldier, Chen Yu, despite his serious injuries and lack of proper medicine, still managed to pull through with determination. He leaned on a makeshift crutch and practiced walking in the living room. I kindly reminded him, haste makes waste. If you open the wound, all your efforts will be in vain. I can't be away from the base for too long, and I definitely can't let anyone see my vulnerable side. Chen Yu's tone was flat. Otherwise, they might take the opportunity to kill me and take my place. This statement is very realistic. This is how the apocalypse is. The weak are preyed upon by the strong. Once Chen Yu had recovered a bit more, he drove a tricycle to the wreckage of the helicopter to salvage some parts and assembled a signal transmitter. There are no suitable means of transportation here. If he wants to go back, he can only call someone to pick him up. I squatted beside him and said, in this apocalyptic environment, everyone's food is precious. You're the boss at the base, so you definitely won't lack for food and clothing. No matter how you put it, I saved your life. You can't repay kindness with enmity by bringing people to steal my things. Chen Yu looked at me meaningfully, then took a watch out of his pocket. Take this with you. My name is engraved on it. If you encounter anyone from the base in the future, they won't make things difficult for you. Additionally, only my trusted confidant came this time, and he won't speak out of turn without my permission. This is exactly the token I have been hoping for, and I won't be vague about it. All right, thank you, and I wish you all the best in the future. 2 days later, a helicopter came to pick up Chen Yu, but what surprised me was that, besides a young man, there was also a familiar face, Du Xiaoxiao. She was disheveled, wrapped in a tattered coat, shivering from the cold. The moment she saw me, Du Xiaoxiao's eyes widened in shock, and she hysterically rushed over. Zhang Ting, why are you still alive? The young man was also startled and quickly stopped her, saying, hey, what are you doing? The young man's name is Xiao Gu, and he is Chen Yu's trusted aide and assistant. When he arrived, he passed through the seaside city and saw Du Xiaoxiao surrounded by zombies on the rooftop, in a life-threatening situation, so he stepped in to save her, according to the plan. Du Xiaoxiao was supposed to go to the base, but she broke free with a fierce glare at me. I'm not leaving, my friends are here, I want to stay, isn't that right, Zhang and Ting? I smiled sincerely. Of course, you're welcome to stay. I still have an old score to settle with Du Xiaoxiao. Having experienced the apocalypse and death, I certainly won't be so merciful. If Du Xiaoxiao chose to stay, I wouldn't let her live for long. But Chen Yu said that they have their own rules. Rescued survivors must go to the base, or else they would throw her back to Haishur. Those who can rise to the leadership ranks in the base during the apocalypse are few, and not many have the courage to challenge Qin Yu when he puts on a stern face. Du Xiaoxiao hesitated for a long time and finally managed to squeeze out a question. Is there food at the base? Eat to your heart's content. It is eat to your heart's content, but you also have to work. In fact, the labor intensity at each base is not low. Qin Yu's base is better than others because it allows for plenty to eat. But Du Xiaoxiao has nothing to do with diligence. In her previous life, in order to avoid going out to find supplies, she had almost rolled in the beds of all the leaders. Of course, in the end, it didn't go as she wished. Those people never kept their promises. Du Xiaoxiao followed the helicopter. I realized too late that Qin Yu took Du Xiaoxiao away out of kindness. Although it is not really necessary, I am willing to accept this kindness. Qin Yu left behind a mobile phone when he left, which looked a bit like an old-fashioned model, heavy and solid. His number was stored inside. He said that if I encountered difficulties, I could call him for help, and he would do his best to assist within his capabilities, as a way to repay my life-saving grace. After Qin Yu left, my life returned to a brief period of calm. The weather grew colder, and there were 2 more heavy snowfalls. The various crops in the greenhouse were growing very well. Aside from some short-growing fruits and vegetables, I focused on taking care of the corn and wheat. Who knows how long the end of the world will last? These will be my food guarantee for the future. After finishing my work and returning to the house, I slightly heated up the leftover porridge from lunch and ate a pancake. Just finished cleaning up the dishes when I suddenly heard the faint growls of zombies outside. I was too familiar with this sound, and my nerves instantly tensed up. I climbed to the rooftop and carefully observed with binoculars. The wind was strong and the snow was heavy, greatly obstructing my view. I searched carefully for a long time before finally spotting the figure of a zombie. After confirming there was only one, I put on my shoulder pads and helmet, and stepped out the door with my axe. These things can easily gather in groups, and once they do, it becomes troublesome. The zombie caught the scent of a human and lunged at me with its claws. I swung my axe, and its head exploded like a rotten watermelon. I followed the trail all the way and eventually confirmed that this zombie must have been washed nearby by the river and then crawled up from the cliff. The zombie's abdomen was split open, and its rotting belly was empty. It hadn't eaten fresh blood and flesh for a long time. This also means that there are almost no living people left outside. Although this is a small town in a remote county, the permanent population is actually quite large, and every household has its own courtyard, resulting in a much lower population density than in big cities. The number of survivors should be at least considerable. This is not exactly good news. The next day, I received a call from Qin Yu. Qin Yu said succinctly, "The horde of corpses is heading in your direction. At the current speed, it will arrive in at most a week. What are your plans?" I told the truth. "I have no plans, Qin Yu. I can send someone to pick you up to the base." I thought for a moment and sincerely said, "No need to trouble yourself, but thank you for your message. I am unwilling to go to the base, not even to Qin Yu's. Perhaps it is the psychological shadow left from my past life, but I have no good feelings towards the base. There, we survivors are not treated as human beings. We do the hardest and most dangerous work, yet we have to beg for a bite to eat. That is not really living, it is merely a temporary state of not being dead." The zombies climbing up make me wary. Being on an isolated island doesn't mean absolute safety. The temperature is dropping, and the river might freeze at any moment. I'm afraid that more zombies will crawl over then. To take a step back, even if it doesn't freeze. As long as there are enough zombies, they can stack up and cross this cliff. Although the situation is not optimistic, it hasn't reached a point of no return. I opened the room in the far corner of the first floor, pushing aside the stacked cardboard boxes, and found a movable steel plate on the ground. I used some strength to lift the steel plate, revealing a dark staircase that led deep underground. This is a basement. I knew there was a basement here since I moved in. The agent mentioned it as well, however. The original owner probably built this basement just to serve as a storage space, so it is not very well constructed. I groped along the inner wall, turned on the switch, and the light instantly illuminated the space. I walked down the steps and took a general look around. The space is large enough, with ventilation, lighting circuits, and water pipes. basic living conditions can be met. When the tide of corpses arrives, a concealed basement can greatly increase safety. As for lighting and comfort, during special times, there's no need to be too particular. The entrance to the basement is narrow, and I can only move things down one trip at a time. First, I brought down 2 shelves to transfer some of the food and daily necessities, followed by the bed. The moisture-proof mat is at the bottom, with wooden shelves serving as the bed frame, topped with a mattress and thick blankets. The refrigerator cannot be moved down, and it's unrealistic to store food for the long term. Another challenge is the heat source. There is no air conditioning installed in the basement, and ventilation is poor, making it impossible to use a stove. But as long as the generator is still working, it is possible to make do with an electric blanket and an electric heater. The next day, I led 2 large pigs into the bathroom to slaughter them. The tide of corpses leaves no living creatures behind. I don't want my hard-earned labor to go to waste for them. I have never killed a pig, but I have seen pigs being slaughtered. There were also large livestock raised at the base, and every time there was a slaughter, we could see some meat. I definitely won't get any meat, but there will be soup made from pig bones, soaking cold rice, which will at least provide some grease to fill my stomach. The chickens, ducks, and rabbits also met the same fate, but in order to have fresh meat in the future, I caught 2 pairs of young rabbits and a few chicks and ducklings to raise in the basement. The processed meat was stuffed into the refrigerator, and what couldn't fit was simply buried in the snow. The only thing that worries me is the greenhouse, although I have piled up snow and bricks around it. If the zombies break into the greenhouse, the crops inside will surely freeze to death. The temperature in the basement is too low again, making it impossible to transplant. In short, it seems that this season we won't be able to eat corn and wheat. When I built the courtyard wall, there were still many bricks left. I bricked up the window of the small room at the basement entrance, blocked the door with various boxes filled with toilet paper and activated carbon, laid ash on the floor, and finally bricked up the door as well. This way, the room became a sealed chamber. Zombies have a stronger sense of smell than sight. Theoretically, as long as I do my best to hide my living scent, it is not impossible to survive the tide of corpses. In my previous life, I encountered such a person at the base. He was a worker at a rubber factory, and when the tide of corpses came, he dove into a large warehouse filled with foam boxes, trembling inside for 4 days. Although it was cold and he was hungry, he managed to survive and was eventually rescued and taken to the base. Unfortunately, life at the base was not easy either. He was assigned to repair the city walls, enduring temperatures of -10 to 20 degrees, with frostbite on his hands, feet, and face. In the end, he still died, falling from the city wall and being devoured by zombies. The base's excuse is that he slipped, but we all know it's because his leg was injured not long ago and he can no longer work, and the base won't keep useless people. They are implicitly dealt with. This is also why I would rather risk dying in a tide of corpses than go to the base, despite the fact that there are solid walls and firearms that can ensure the safety of most people. After laying the last red brick on the door, I breathed a sigh of relief. Regardless of success or failure, I have done all I can do. The steel plate pressed down, making a dull sound. For safety's sake, I nailed 3 layers of chains under the steel plate, feeling a bit more confident as I touched the familiar fire axe at my side. The food I moved down is enough for me to eat for a few months. The zombies have no reason to linger in this place for too long. Living in the same space as rabbits, chickens, and ducks doesn't smell pleasant, but thinking about having to eat meat in the future makes me grit my teeth and endure it. To pass the time, I brought many books with me, including efficient pig farming techniques, scientific management of vegetable greenhouses, and poultry disease diagnosis techniques, all practical subjects. 3 days later, I woke up from my sleep. A buzzing vibration came from the ground, as if several trains were roaring by in parallel above. The tide of corpses has come. I suddenly sat up, gripping the axe that was by the bed. The warm water bottle and the blanket still had some heat left. It's too cold. The indoor temperature was already close to freezing, and my body heat alone couldn't warm me up. The rabbits and chickens seemed to sense the threat, huddling in the corner, motionless. I put on my cotton coat, got out of bed, checked the thermos for hot water, and made a bucket of noodles for breakfast. Next, I fed the chickens, ducks, and rabbits, cleaned up their droppings, and checked the water pipes and the locks on the steel plates. After finishing these tasks, I sat down at the table and began studying under the small desk lamp. Today's study topic is postpartum care for sows. Unfortunately, my 2 large pigs have already turned into meat, so I won't need this knowledge for the time being. After looking at it for a while, I really couldn't focus. So I simply lay back in bed and covered myself with the quilt again, rest and conserve energy. The number of zombies is far greater than I imagined. It has already been a day and a night, but the buzzing sound still hasn't stopped. Such a terrifying number is probably in the millions. There's even worse news. The water flow has decreased. I can roughly guess the situation on the ground. The door is open, the temperature is dropping, and the pipes may have frozen. I had anticipated that this might happen, so I stocked up on a lot of water, and I also have a kettle, which can barely sustain me. Now I just hope there are no issues with the electrical system, but what you fear will come. And after 10 hours, the lights went out. I put on all my clothes and sat in the darkness, quietly waiting. Even without electricity and hot water, I can still hold on for a long time. 3 days later, the noise outside gradually diminished, but I still insisted on staying underground for 5 more days before finally daring to unlock the chains and crawl out of the basement. There were a few loose bricks in the corner of the window, and a beam of light shone through. I sat on the ground for a long time to catch my breath, then slowly leaned over and shielded my eyes with my hand to look outside. The ground was covered in white snow, and the north wind howled, just like before. After repeatedly confirming that there were no zombies around, I picked up the sledgehammer and swung it with all my might at the door. After several strikes, a hole was broken through the stacked bricks, and I reached out to push aside the assorted boxes. Crawling out through the hole, the villa's front door was wide open, and the windows were broken, with the wind blowing in from all directions, making the inside as cold as the outside. I did not dare to let my guard down. I carefully searched every room and corner of the villa with the axe, confirming that there were no lingering zombies. The condition of the villa is not very good. The walls are intact, but the main gate is broken. The chicken and duck coops in the yard have almost been flattened, and the greenhouse has a large hole in it. The fruits and vegetables I painstakingly tended to have turned into ice sculptures, not to mention the filthy footprints all over the house and ground. There's a piece of rotten intestine here and a rotten foot there. It's simply unbearable to look at. But this is not the time to lose heart. I gathered my spirits and began to clean up. The gate of the yard was half broken and couldn't be closed securely, so I dragged many bricks and stones to block it. The window was broken, so I nailed it up with wooden boards and covered it with a layer of plastic inside. Without heating equipment, I built a simple stove to light a fire and burn firewood. I worked during the day and crawled back into the basement to sleep at night. Anyway, life has to go on, and I have to survive. It was at this time that Chinyu appeared. He parked the helicopter in the nearby open space, jumped over the wall, and grinned widely, showing his big white teeth. "You really are still alive." I huddled in my tattered cotton jacket, forcing a smile and saying, "Yeah, thanks to you, I'm still alive." Chinyu fixed the generator, and I took out the electric griddle to treat him to some grilled meat. The two of us gathered around the table, grilling by the electric heater, our mouths full of grease. To be honest, I'm quite grateful to Chinyu. Surviving the tide of corpses this time was largely thanks to the information he shared in advance, which allowed me to prepare adequately. I can learn everything else, but I really can't fix a generator. I asked him if there was any official business for this visit, and Chinyu said it was still to search for survivors, although the probability is very low. We cannot completely rule it out. I guess you should still be alive, so I came to take a look. I immediately flattered. Thanks to team leader Chin, there wouldn't be the me of today. The number of corpses this time is as high as tens of millions. I didn't expect you to really make it through, Chinyu hinted, but it seems you really dislike going to the base. I laughed and said, I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I don't like living in a group. Besides, you mentioned before that life at the base might not be better. I'm quite satisfied here with food and drink. I suspect Chinyu may have already dealt with the traitors within the base. Compared to before, he now looks much more relaxed and even smiles. This may also signify that the situation is developing in a positive direction. After all, Chinyu is a person of the state, and one can glean a hint or two from his condition. I held the bowl, sniffled, and said, I don't know when this cold weather will end. The corn I planted has all frozen to death, and the apple trees have also died from the frost. Chinyu said, at most, in another 3 months, the temperature will start to warm up. I was overjoyed. That's great. Although it will still be 3 months, at least there is something to look forward to. Chinyu shook his head. I actually hope to wait a bit longer. Right now, the world is full of corpses. Once the temperature warms up, bacteria will thrive and viruses will spread. At that time, I'm afraid there will be a large-scale outbreak of plague. It seems to make some sense. Chinyu looked at me and said, so surprised, what, didn't you live to see the warm spring in your past life? I froze for a moment, and the piece of meat in my hand fell to the ground with a thud. As my thoughts returned, I suspected he was deliberately trying to trick me, so I pretended to be calm, picked up the meat, blew on it, and stuffed it into my mouth, saying, what do you mean, when I was alive? Chinyu sneered, you don't know me. It's our first meeting. How do you know I'm the leader of the base? You've never been to the Free Corps base. How do you know to call me the leader? You said you wanted to start a media business. Why haven't you prepared any photography equipment, but instead have a lot of books related to agriculture and animal husbandry? If this is your first experience of the apocalypse, how do you know that zombies rely more on smell than sight? You piled up so many boxes there, all filled with activated carbon bags and toilet paper. Is that just a coincidence? This person's thoughts are truly meticulous to a terrifying degree. It turns out that without realizing it, I have already revealed so many flaws. At this point, there's really no denying it. I can only awkwardly smile and say, I'm just a small person, with no other intentions. I swear to heaven, I haven't done anything harmful to the country or the organization. I just want to survive. Chinyu glanced at me and said, that's why I didn't lay a hand on you. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel a chill at the back of my neck. Without my realizing it, I may have brushed past death several times, but apart from being honest, I had no other choice. The gap in strength between us was simply too great. Chinyu is nearly 9 meters tall, with broad shoulders and firm muscles full of explosive power. Both his intelligence and strength far exceed mine. If he wants to deal with me, it won't be any harder than dealing with a zombie. Seeing his indifferent expression, I couldn't help but add, your helicopter crashed nearby at that time. When I got there, your companion was already dead. I really didn't do it. He has lost too much blood. If he stays there any longer, it might attract zombies. So I know it wasn't you. Chinyu raised his eyes and interrupted, because it was me. In an instant, I was drenched in cold sweat. The air was still, with only the sound of the meat sizzling on the grill. Chinyu smiled and said, don't be afraid. I told you I wouldn't lay a hand on you. That person was a spy planted by the Free Corps beside me. I just took this opportunity to deal with him. I chuckled awkwardly. So that's how it is. Luckily, he had already breathed his last at that time. If he had been saved, it would have caused trouble. It feels very unpleasant to gamble against a clever person. He can easily see through all my cards, and I have no way to counter it. Chinyu looked up at me and asked, how did you die? I told the truth. I was bitten to death by a zombie. Chinyu picked up a piece of roasted meat and put it in his mouth. Is it related to that friend of yours? I was greatly surprised. How could you even guess this? Chinyu scoffed. It's all written on your face. Isn't it hard to guess? Besides, that woman clearly isn't a good person. I said awkwardly, yes, she is indeed a terrible person, but my character is fine. Please rest assured, organization, your problem lies in your brain. He pointed to the position of the temple. Your IQ is too low. Although it was good to speak openly, Chinyu became increasingly brazen and rudely launched a personal attack against me. I endured it. Let's make a deal. Chinyu tore off a paper towel and elegantly wiped his mouth. I can leave Du Xiaoxiao to you to deal with as you wish, but you need to exchange useful information for her. I was once again caught off guard. I'm afraid that Chinyu had already sensed the hatred entanglement between Du Xiaoxiao and me during the first encounter. So taking her away at that time was not out of any kindness or good intentions, but simply to increase the leverage for future negotiations. I once again marvel at how meticulous this person is. Fortunately, he is on the national team. Otherwise, having such an enemy would be too terrifying. I steadied myself and revealed all the details I knew. I stayed at Base 5 for 2 months, and the team leader there is Xiao Wang. He has a good personal relationship with the team leader of Base 2 and often discusses matters at the base, sometimes even staying overnight. Someone from the leadership of Base 4 came here once and had a long private conversation with Xiao Wang. Chen Yu squinted his eyes and asked, "What is his name?" I told the truth. "I'm not sure. I didn't see his face, but I recognized him as being from Base 4 by his clothes. He was very tall and was a man, at that time. I had just bribed the manager with supplies I had saved up for a long time to be assigned to the cleaning position. Although it is still very difficult, the frequency of needing to go out to search for supplies has greatly decreased. It was also during that time that I happened to overhear their conversation. Someone from Base 4 came to report that Qin Yu was an undercover agent sent by Huagua to search for evidence against the Free Army." Qin Yu pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "If you see this person again, would you recognize them?" I considered my answer carefully and said, "I didn't see their face, but I can recognize their voice. I didn't see that person's face, but I am very sensitive to sounds. I am confident I can recognize it." Qin Yu, "All right, come back to the base with me to identify this person. With the experiences from my past life, I really don't want to get close to such a haunted place again." Qin Yu seemed to know what I was worried about and pointedly said, "This is also to save your life. A small group of remaining corpses is approaching this direction. Although there aren't many, this is a necessary path. Do you still want to hide back in the dark, lightless basement?" To be honest, I don't mind hiding in the basement, but after a brief thought, I decided to go to the base with Qin Yu. Indeed, in this rebirth, my first concern is my own safety. Then taking revenge on Du Xiao, and only after that, other matters. But those who are not of my kind must be exterminated. The Freedom Corps must eliminate them. If we don't catch this spy, and if he is already suspicious of Qin Yu, then there will inevitably be more and greater risks in the future. I don't consider myself to have a particularly high moral awareness, but when it comes to matters of the country and family, my stance is still very firm. Okay, I am willing to help. The things are easy to pack, but it's a pity for my villa. I just finished tidying up and hadn't had the chance to live in it before I have to leave immediately, after the tide of corpses passes. If you want to leave, I can take you back." I looked at him with gratitude. I increasingly feel that Qin Yu might be the protagonist of this world. Being next to the protagonist leads to two completely different outcomes. Either you cling to their leg and rise to success, or you become cannon fodder. Forced to take the hit, I didn't dare to hope for soaring success, but I did have a little thought. If I could help Qin Yu and earn a bit of goodwill, it would be beneficial in the future. I quickly packed my backpack and followed Qin Yu onto the helicopter. Sitting in the cockpit was Qin Yu's assistant, Xiao Gu. He looked about the same age as Qin Yu, but his personality was much more cheerful. He not only greeted me actively but also shared a piece of chocolate with me. I was taken aback and, after thanking him, carefully put it away. In this year, chocolate is a valuable commodity. After returning to the base, Qin Yu left. Xiao Gu took me to the dormitory and introduced me to the others as his distant cousin, asking everyone to take care of me. I knew this was my new identity, so I quickly said some polite words. This is my first time at Base 4, and it is similar to other bases. I have been assigned to work in the cafeteria. This is considered a good job. Besides Xiao Gu's instructions, it's also because all members of the base have to line up at the window to get their meals. I can use my position to determine who the informant is by their voice. On the first day of serving meals, I met Du Xiao. She looked like she was having a hard time, with unkempt hair, wearing a dirty cotton coat and equally dirty rain boots. The only redeeming feature was her delicate face, which was marred by 2 deep cuts. Du Xiao clearly recognized me. She stared wide-eyed, as if she wanted to say something, but the base had its own rules. Loud talking was prohibited in the cafeteria, or else there would be no food to eat. There was meat for lunch today, braised chicken wings, but each person could only have one, although they could pour extra sauce over their rice. Even in Qin Yu's base, such good dishes are not available every day. I picked the smallest one from the vegetable bowl, which was almost just a bone, and placed it on her plate. Du Xiao's hand holding the rice bowl trembled with anger, and her gaze towards me was as if she wanted to shoot daggers. Her voice was almost squeezed out through her teeth. "Why are you here?" I deliberately pretended not to hear and impatiently said. hurry up and finish, there's a line behind." Everyone was waiting in line to eat meat and vegetables, and upon hearing this, they complained even more, while Du Xiaoxiao was pushed aside. To be honest, this job, although not life-threatening, is not easy at all. The person in charge of the cafeteria is a bald middle-aged man, and everyone calls him Manager Zhang. He doesn't care whether someone has connections, as long as they come in. They have to work. Every day I have to deal with mountains of potatoes, wash hundreds of pounds of rice, and scrub hundreds or even thousands of dishes. It's even more exhausting than the work I did at the villa. Usually, by the end of the day, my back is so stiff I can hardly stand up straight. What's worse is that more than a week has passed, and I still have no clue on how to find the informant spy. Is he not at this base, or could it be that in this lifetime, he is actually already dead? As for some matters concerning Du Xiaoxiao, I have actually learned quite a bit, after being brought back to the base. She was assigned a very ordinary but also very exhausting job. She couldn't stand it after just a couple of days, so she attempted to bribe the manager with her looks, only to find that the manager's wife was fierce and immediately used a hoe to carve 2 gashes on her face. The weather is extremely cold now, which is not conducive to wound recovery, and medicine is scarce and hard to come by. As a result, her face not only cannot heal but is also rotting more severely. This has led to her being unable to use her appearance to gain any advantages, forcing her to endure day by day in that job, and every few days she still has to follow the team outside to search for supplies. Surviving until now is purely luck. Ever since I started working in the kitchen, Du Xiaoxiao hasn't had any meat. She angrily questioned me why I treated her differently, and I stood with my hands on my hips, justifying, "You used to eat my food and drink my drinks, and now that you're just returning the favor, you can't handle it. You don't know how to appreciate your blessings. If you were in another base, you wouldn't even have enough to eat." Over time, the whole base knew that Du Xiaoxiao and I were not on good terms, but no one stood up for her. People are very realistic. Even though I'm just a kitchen worker, if you offend me, you won't get any meat. Moreover, Du Xiaoxiao's character is quite average. Her little schemes are simply not enough in the apocalypse, and no one wants to be friends with such a person. I used to be a big fool. I worked in the cafeteria for 2 weeks and got to know almost everyone, but I still couldn't find the person I had in mind, so I took the initiative to apply for logistics. The logistics team receives their meals separately every day, and they are the only group in the base that I have not fully interacted with. The bald manager agreed, not because I had connections, but because logistics is also a tough job, feeding pigs, chickens, and ducks, cooking pig feed, and cleaning up manure. The labor intensity is much higher than that of the cafeteria. I received my work uniform, put on rain boots, and donned a large apron, heading to the kitchen logistics in a grayish state. Du Xiaoxiao thought I had been demoted for angering the manager and came to gloat over my misfortune. Now she doesn't even pretend anymore. I directly hit her in the face with the shovel I used for scooping manure, then pounced on her, throwing punches left and right. Having been used to farm work, my strength is no joke. After that, she stayed quiet for a while and didn't show up again. Later, I heard that the wounds on her face had never healed, and after being contaminated with manure, they became even more infected, leaving half of her face rotten. One night after this, I was lying on the single bed, just about to close my eyes and sleep, when I suddenly heard a little noise outside. It sounded like someone was on the phone. "Yes, tomorrow is okay. I will go do it." The day after I arrived at the base, I moved out of the dormitory. There were no beds available in the better dorms, and the lesser ones had 16 people in one room. After all, I had the title of a connected person, so my arrangements couldn't be too perfunctory. I placed a shelf board in the corner of the storage room on the 2nd floor, and it became my single room. Usually, this place was only used to store some rarely used shelves, and not many people came here. So when I heard a noise, I couldn't help but frown. Coming here in the middle of the night to make a phone call, either for love talks or because of some guilty conscience. Yes, Chin Yu has a problem. A single sentence held me captive. I held my breath and tiptoed out, hiding in the shadows of the clutter. At the end of the corridor, there was indeed a figure standing, a tall man, but when I saw clearly in the faint light, I almost doubted my eyes. It turned out to be the bald-headed Jing from the kitchen. "You with your thick eyebrows and big eyes. I never expected you to betray us too. At this point, the phone call was nearing its end. Xing the bald-headed answered twice and then hung up before leaving. I also tiptoed back slowly. I decided to tell Qin Yu about this news first thing in the morning, but the next morning, I learned that Qin Yu had gone to attend a collective meeting of the Free Soldiers Corps last night and left at 3 in the morning. I couldn't get through to him on the phone, and I couldn't help but suspect that Jin Guangtou had passed the news on last night, and that this meeting was actually a trap set to target Qin Yu. Because I had something on my mind, I was distracted all day. It wasn't until I finished my work and returned to my small cabin in the evening that I saw a tall, bald figure standing in front of my door. Cold sweat immediately broke out on me. Zheng, the bald man, he turned to look at me and said in a very friendly tone, Xiao Zhang, when did you move in? Now that we have to tear our faces apart, I will definitely be in trouble. Qin Yu is not at the base, and if something really happens, no one will back me up. I pinched my palm and pretended to be clueless. I've always lived here, right? There are no beds available in the dormitory. Zheng Guangtou stared at me, his small eyes filled with gloom. Is it comfortable living in such a small and remote place? I don't want to live here either, but there's nowhere else to go, right? I suddenly realized, feigning surprise, and looked at him. Boss, is there an available bed in the double room? To be honest, this place is really unlivable. It's cold and damp. For the first couple of days after I moved in, I had nightmares all night. But over time, I got used to it, mainly. I was just exhausted, like a dead pig. Collapsing into bed and sleeping straight through until morning, I went under the bed and pulled out a cardboard box. Inside were the supplies I had painstakingly accumulated: 5 sausages, 3 bags of crispy noodles, and a small bottle of white liquor for tasting. I stuffed these things into his hands, looking at him eagerly. Leader, please take the trouble to help me find a bed. He still looked at me with that vague expression. And after a long time he said, just wait. I'll notify you when there's a bed available. Zheng Guangtou walked out, and I diligently followed behind, forcing him to take the ham and white wine I had stuffed into his pocket, until I watched the person leave. The cold sweat on my back had not yet dried. Of course I know that he doesn't completely believe me. Doubt is like a seed. Once planted in the ground, it can take root and sprout on its own. For the next 2 days, I was extremely cautious, not daring to close my eyes completely while sleeping. I locked the door with a chain, hiding a pitchfork and an axe under the bed. Even if someone set a fire downstairs, I could chop through the window and jump out. After living peacefully for 2 days, it seemed that everything had cleared up, but I always felt that this matter was not over. After being extremely cautious, I finally discovered something unusual on the 3rd day. The kitchen logistics bear the responsibility of feeding the entire base, with people on duty day and night in shifts. Tonight was supposed to be my turn with Liu Yang, but Liu Yang's name was crossed out on the list and changed to Zhang Chang. Zhang Chang is an unremarkable middle-aged man who usually doesn't stand out, but he has a good relationship with the bald man surnamed Jing. I once saw the two of them smoking together. Perhaps because of this connection, he often works the day shift. When something unusual happens, there must be something wrong. A sudden shift in shifts definitely indicates a problem. That night, the two of us were each responsible for a section, and we communicated with a few words when necessary, managing to maintain a semblance of harmony. Just as I was about to bend down to change the water bucket, a shadow suddenly fell over me from behind. Zhang Chang struck the back of my neck with a shovel. My head buzzed, and for a moment, everything went black. I grabbed the iron door tightly to avoid collapsing to the ground. As I saw the second blow about to come down, I quickly rolled on the ground and crawled into the pig pen. The pigs were startled and scattered in all directions, while Zhang Chang blocked the exit, holding a shovel and watching intently. He wants to kill me. I touched the back of my head, and it was sticky with blood. There was a group of pigs between us, and I gasped, asking him, if you want to kill me, at least let me understand why. When did I offend you? Zhang Chang said, anyway, you have to die. I asked, do you really have to stand with Zheng Guangtou? Do you know he is a spy sent in from another country? By helping a spy, do you still consider yourself a citizen of Huagua? Zhang Chang replied, all I know is that he saved my life. Seeing that there was no time to talk, I pulled out the dagger tied to my calf and stabbed it into the nearest pig's rear. The boars raised in this pen are all for breeding, each weighing over 400 pounds, and they can easily knock a person over when startled. Taking advantage of Zhang Chang's clumsy dodging, I quickly opened the thermos hanging at my waist, which was already filled with scalding hot chili water, and splashed it all over Zhang Chang's face. Zhang Chang screamed while covering his face. And I took advantage of the chaos to stab him in the heart. It's true that Zhang Chang is a man, but he is less than 1.7 meters tall and not built like a strong person. He wanted to kill me, and I certainly wanted to kill him too. Pigs are omnivores and are the main source of meat supply in the base. Fed with kitchen scraps, they grow fat and strong. There are more than 50 adult pigs raised in the base. If a person were chopped into pieces and mixed into pig feed, what are the chances of being discovered? Approximately 0. I have handled over 300 pounds of pig alone. Processing a person won't be much more difficult than that. Zhang Chang has gone missing. No one suspects me. First of all, I have no reason to harm Zhang Chang. Secondly, it's the end of the world now. Every day, countless people die, and human life isn't worth that much. A Zhang Chang has gone missing, but there will be more Zhang Chang to take his place. The base will never be short of worker bees. 2 days later, Du Xiaoxiao arrived at the kitchen logistics department, taking over Zhang Chang's position. I know this must be the work of Jingguangtou. He probably heard the rumors about my discord with Du Xiaoxiao. Either he sent her to annoy me or to spy on me, but his plan fell through once again, because on her first day, I beat Du Xiaoxiao up. I know she must be harboring bad intentions, so I won't allow her to get close to me. If she dares to come over, I'll slap her. Du Xiaoxiao must have been having a tough time lately. She doesn't have the strength to do much work, and with her face ruined, it's impossible to gain any benefits through her looks. The only thing she can do is cling to Jingguangtou and do his work, but I won't give her a good face either. I will make her do the dirtiest and heaviest work, and I will bump into her shoulder while walking, or deliberately knock over her bowl of food. She deserves all of this. Just as I was pondering what Jingguangtou's next move would be, a shocking news came in. Chen Yu is dead. It was said that he encountered a horde of zombies on the way back, and his car lost contact with the convoy, falling into a pile of zombies. I was stunned when I heard the news. Isn't he the male lead? How could he die so easily? Is this reasonable? But having experienced a lifetime, I know better than anyone the fate of falling into a pile of zombies. It's hard to escape even if the highest deity comes. Unsurprisingly, as soon as the news spread, the entire base was instantly in an uproar. Then came the chaos, true chaos in every sense. If a new leader cannot be elected quickly, the only fate for the base will be to be swallowed by other bases, and all the hard-earned administrators will be reduced to the lowest level of worker bees. They certainly would not be content to accept such a fate. I took advantage of the chaos to run back to the storage room, put on all the clothes I could find, and dug out supplies from the wooden box to pack into my backpack. Chen Yu is alive, and Jingguangtou still has some reservations, but if Chen Yu is dead, he can deal with me without any scruples. I plan to steal a car and run away. Chen Yu once said that the extreme cold would soon pass, and when the weather warms up, survival would become relatively easier. Gritting my teeth and holding on is much better than waiting here to die. In this second life, I cherish my existence very much. The base is in chaos, with flashes of fire and gunshots occasionally heard. Some people are trembling in the shadows, while others are frantically fleeing with their heads down. I have the car keys, which I found on Zhang Chang. He has a modified van that occasionally goes out with supply-seeking teams. Parked right under the city wall, I approached the gate under the cover of night, and sure enough, the guards at the entrance were all distracted. Chen Yu's incident was a huge shock to everyone at the base. I opened the car door, got in, fastened my seatbelt, and silently reviewed the process of starting the car in my mind. After 2 lifetimes, I really hadn't touched a motor vehicle in a long time, taking advantage of a car that was about to leave the base. I immediately started the engine and followed behind. As the checkpoint procedures were being checked, the barrier had already opened. I slammed the accelerator and sped past from the side, looking in the rearview mirror. Sure enough, no one was chasing after me. I let out a sigh of relief. Now everyone is too busy taking care of themselves. Who would care about someone escaping to seek their own death? outside the base. It was freezing cold, and many places were covered with snow, making it impossible to distinguish the road. I was unfamiliar with this area and could only drive along the road away from the city, hoping not to encounter any zombies. I only turned on the heater when I could no longer stand the cold, until dawn broke. I finally stopped outside an abandoned building in the suburbs. At that time, the wind and snow had ceased, and the sunlight cast a warm glow on the pristine white snow. I curled my nearly numb fingers and opened a bag of bread. Taking a couple of sips of water, there were quite a few supplies hidden under the car seat, including chocolate, beef jerky, compressed biscuits, bottled water, and 2 packs of cigarettes. They must have all been hidden away by Zhang Chang. After finishing the bread, I tried to call Qinyu. I originally just had a try-and-see attitude, but I didn't expect to actually get through. When Qinyu's voice came from the other end, I was completely stunned. "Qinyu, why aren't you speaking?" I stammered. "No, didn't you die?" "Yes, I'm dead." "You're talking to a dead person now, Qinyu. I'm not joking with you. I'm in a state of fake death, and I've returned to the national base, preparing to work with the military to reclaim the base. I need you to assist me from the inside and out." I was furious. If you had said something last night, I would have run 800 miles away. Also, Xinguangtou is a spy, but I don't know why the voice doesn't match. I couldn't find anyone in the entire base whose voice matched. Xinguangtou's throat was injured, and his voice changed afterward. "Just before you came to the base," Qinyu's voice was somewhat surprised. "I can't believe it's him. I really didn't expect that." "There are still things you didn't expect, big brother. You almost got me killed." "I nearly let him kill me," I lamented. "Where are you? Can I come to join you?" "Qinyu, not yet. I need you to go to base 5 and help me deliver a message." "Me, Qinyu, you are a newcomer and familiar with the terrain over there. You are the most suitable for this task." "Me, Qinyu, I will report it to the country, and you will be credited for your great contribution." "Me, it doesn't matter about the credit. What matters is that I am particularly patriotic." After finishing the call with Qinyu, I turned around and went to base 5. The place where I was a worker bee in my past life. I drove the van at breakneck speed, crying out in front of the gate of base 5. "There's a coup at base 4. Commander Qin is in trouble. Help." The gate swung open, and I was dragged inside. Zhao Wang, the commander of base 5, interrogated me for details, and I took the opportunity to vent my frustrations. "There's a traitor at base 4. Our commander Qin is absolutely loyal to the Free Corps. They just want to seize power. Which is why they blocked the news and fabricated these lies. Now that something has happened to Leader Qin, they have revealed their true colors. I barely managed to escape. Leader Zhao, you must help us." I am certain that Zhao Wang will go. After all, Qinyu's base is known for its wealth. Even the worker bees can have enough to eat, so they must have stockpiled a lot of supplies. In the post-apocalyptic era, this is enough to make one envious, to be on the safe side. Zhao Wang contacted the leader of base 2, and they decided to join forces to take advantage of the chaos. Of course, it would be even better if they could take over base 5 completely during this opportunity. As soon as they stepped out, I immediately sent a signal to Qinyu. The leader took away most of the troops, and the base lacked defenses. This was the best time to launch an attack. When the fighting started, I crawled into a dog hole. I had spent time at base 5 in my previous life, so I was quite familiar with the terrain. I stuffed some straw to block the entrance, listening to the gunfire outside, silently praying that Qinyu would be more reliable this time and not let me down again. Finally, after a long time, the gunfire ceased. I peeked out for a moment and confirmed that the National Army had achieved an overwhelming victory. I was overjoyed, scrambling to get out, only to be pulled back by my collar the next second. "It's Qinyu." I was almost in tears. "You really didn't die. Why do you care whether I'm dead or alive?" Qinyu said coldly. "Run then. Who can outrun you?" I do not agree. The instinct to survive is human nature. Although I ran, I didn't delay anything. So I said, "This is called not causing trouble for the organization." Qinyu easily took control of base 2 and base 5. Aside from the leadership of the Free Corps and a small number of loyal guards, others did not resist and were not harmed. After all, most people were just compatriots whose will had been forced. What wrong did they do? Chen Yu acted decisively and quickly took over the two bases. He not only brought the official army but also a large amount of supplies. That night, the kitchen steamed rice and braised pork, and everyone had their fill. Chen Yu held a meeting with a bunch of people and left me the last seat. At most, the weather will warm up in another month. We must reclaim the other 3 bases before then and focus on killing zombies to regain control of the city. As for Zhao Qingshan and Yu Tianbao, they are currently trapped in base 4, let them consume each other for now. After the temperature rises, there is one more thing that is particularly important. We must catch up with this season's crop planting to maximize the guarantee of people's livelihoods. Everyone should pay special attention to agricultural supply stores while searching for supplies. We need a large quantity of grain seeds and vegetable seeds. After the meeting, I found Chen Yu and said eagerly, "Team Leader Chen." Chen Yu interrupted me, frowning. "The Free Corps is a thing of the past. There is no team leader here." "Okay, Captain Chen," being benevolent, said, "I have many seeds, and I am willing to donate them for the future of all humanity." Chen Yu raised his eyelids. "In exchange, what do you want?" Seeing through me at a glance, I felt a bit embarrassed. "I heard you say that you will reallocate areas for housing in the future. Can you assign me a place with a yard? I want to farm. I believe I have a talent for farming." "Chen Yu, is that it?" I tentatively said. "Isn't this request a bit conservative for my first time going through the back door?" Chen Yu snorted coldly and waved his sleeve as he left. "The zombies aren't finished yet, and you're already thinking about getting a house." After the national team took over the base, the first thing they did was distribute cold weather supplies, giving each person a cotton coat, a cotton quilt, and a pair of cotton shoes. It was then that I realized there were so many supplies in the warehouse. At least we wouldn't be lacking in cold weather gear, but they just refused to hand them out. Watching us shiver and huddle together, what pure beasts they are, and the changes go far beyond this. The base organized a strong vanguard team to go out in search of supplies, and everyone was given weapons, with the army accompanying them for protection. Of course, everyone still had to work and collectively go to the cafeteria for meals, but everyone could eat their fill, and those who were injured could go to the medical room for bandaging and treatment. Rather than being coldly pushed away to feed the zombies, this also made the survivors in the base more convinced that everything was moving in a positive direction. I haven't seen Chen Yu for a while. He has been very busy, and of course, I have been busy too. I work during the day and attend classes at night. 3 agricultural professors take turns teaching every night at the base. After all, agriculture and animal husbandry are the foundation of our livelihood. And after we fend off the zombies, we need to promote this vigorously and cultivate more skilled individuals in this area. I feel that I have some talent for farming, and with the foundation I gained from self-study earlier, I find it particularly engaging to learn. About half a month later, another group of survivors was brought in. Base 4 was captured, and 2 teams were taken alive. But due to the collapse of the base's walls, it would take time to repair. So half of the members were brought over for temporary accommodation. I saw Du Xiaoxiao again. We were both surprised by each other's vibrant vitality. She recognized me, her eyes bursting with intense hatred, her teeth grinding together as she said, "Zhang Ting, how are you still alive?" She probably hasn't been doing well during this time. The wounds on her face have formed terrifying scars, and she has lost a lot of weight. Perhaps she had been comforting herself with the belief that, at least I'm still alive, and Zhang Ting must be dead, only to find out that not only am I alive, but I'm also doing quite well, which instantly shattered her defenses. I deliberately provoked her, mocking her coldly. "I'm not just alive, I'm thriving, admit it, Du Xiaoxiao. I'm simply better than you and living a better life, both in the past and now. You will never measure up to me." I know exactly how to hit her where it hurts. Sure enough, Du Xiaoxiao's eyes were about to pop out. If it weren't for others blocking her, she would have lunged at me to tear me apart. I curled my lip and didn't take it to heart. She probably has amnesia, forgetting how I taught her to be a person, one slap at a time. Back at base 4, the days are long, and our matters are far from over, but the overall situation has been improving steadily. After reclaiming base 4, bases 3 and 1 were quickly captured as well. And the Free Corps' momentum has waned. It seems that the 2 leading factions received the news and fled early with supplies and a guard team, but it's unknown where they have hidden. After more than half a month, the weather finally showed signs of warming up. Although most of the time it is still a gloomy snowy day, there are always 1 or 2 days in a week when it clears up. Every day, someone has to go up on the city wall to clear the accumulated snow and water stains, otherwise, after a night, it will freeze and become hard and slippery. Tonight, it is my turn to sweep the west wall. This place is close to the cattle farm, and basically, no one comes here. I was absent-mindedly doing my work when I suddenly noticed a shadowy figure flash by. That figure looks a bit familiar. I felt suspicious and quietly followed. The figure approached the west wall, got close to the safety passage, took out a key from their pocket, and opened the innermost steel door. This door has 3 layers inside and out, and is usually in a locked state. It was originally built to prevent a situation where the main entrance of the base could not be defended, providing an escape route for the public. By the faint reflection of the moonlight on the snow, I recognized that it was Du Xiaoxiao. Du Xiaoxiao, trembling, was about to unlock the second door with a key she somehow obtained. I shouted, "What are you doing?" She was startled and ran away, covering her face. I chased after her with a shovel in hand. In the end, I cornered her against the city wall, and with her back against the wall, she shouted hoarsely, "Don't come any closer, or I'll jump." I couldn't help but laugh. "Who are you trying to scare? Do you think I would be sad if you died or something?" I was wondering how the Freedom Corps managed to run away so quickly. It must be that you secretly sent them a message, right? I used to think you just had bad character. But it turns out your morals are just as lacking. Du Xiaoxiao's eyes were filled with panic as she dodged the question. She first wanted to deny it, but then changed her tone. "Zhangting, we've known each other for so many years. Even though you've always targeted me, I still consider you a friend in my heart. Do you know, there are no viruses or zombies abroad. Everyone can live a good life in peace. As long as we open this door and let a few zombies in, the mission will be complete." She spoke enticingly. "Let's put aside our past grievances. I can take you with me." I pointed at her and scolded, "You really are as brainless as ever. The moon is rounder abroad, and the zombies there don't bite, right? Let's not mention our personal grudges. Your betrayal of the country is a violation of the bottom line. You can either let me kill you here today, or you can come back with me and turn yourself in. It's your choice." Du Xiaoxiao can hardly be called good-looking now. Half of her face is covered in scars, her hair is messy, and her features are twisted, making her look like a demon crawled out of hell. She stared at me and suddenly said, "All right, I'll go back with you." Then she slowly walked towards me. My heart said there must be a trick, and I couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Sure enough, as she approached me, she suddenly lunged, grabbing a brick and pouncing towards me. I tilted my head to dodge, and with a swift motion, I struck her forehead with a shovel. There was still some unmelted ice and snow on the city wall. Du Xiaoxiao stumbled a couple of steps, swayed to the side, and fell off the wall. The city wall is over 10 meters high, and there are often scattered zombies wandering outside. Du Xiaoxiao fell down. Her scream lasted only 2 seconds, and then there was nothing. I sighed for half a minute and then climbed down the city wall with a shovel. Sympathy. What a load of nonsense. When I faced this fate in my past life, where was everyone's sympathy then? Rather than lamenting for Du Xiaoxiao here, I regret missing tonight's class. I've heard it's about the care considerations for pregnant sows, which is very practical. Du Xiaoxiao's disappearance didn't stir any waves within the base, but I still mentioned it to Qinyu. There must be quite a few double agents like this in the base. You should take some time to clean them out. Otherwise, if some fool opens the door and lets a zombie in, we're all done for. But Du Xiaoxiao is really resilient. I originally thought she would die with Jingguangtou at base 4. Qinyu raised his eyelids. Didn't we say we would leave it for you to handle? How could she die before that? No wonder Du Xiaoxiao always manages to get under my nose. It turns out there's this behind-the-scenes force at work. It seems that Qinyu is quite trustworthy. After more than half a month, the weather finally welcomed a complete clear-up, with temperatures continuously rising, eventually settling at 20 degrees. This is a very comfortable temperature, and it is also very suitable for planting and growing crops. People took off their heavy cotton clothes, picked up hoes to cultivate the land, and scattered seeds. The military systematically conducts thorough cleaning and neutralization of zombies to prevent the accumulation of corpses from breeding viruses and bacteria in high temperatures. Humanity gradually regains control of the cities. During this time, I returned to the villa once. Because her education level is insufficient, she can only do some relatively basic jobs, and her income is much lower than mine. From high above, the earth is covered with a layer of light green, the color of hope. The only unexpected thing was that after the snow melted, the river below the cliff rose, now barely flooding the ground. If we had returned any later, the entire villa might have been submerged. Xiao Gu and I loaded the supplies onto the plane, especially the seeds and medicines, which are very scarce resources. All 5 bases have been reclaimed, and as I looked at the red flag flying above the base, I sincerely remarked, "You are a great leader." If the survival mode of the base needs to continue for a while in the future, I believe you are the most suitable person for this position, Chen Yu said. You have a good eye. He has always spoken like this. I've gotten used to it, I said. Actually, I heard about your deeds in my past life too, but you passed away young back then. Fortunately, this time you didn't repeat the same fate. Wait, you're not also reborn, are you? Chen Yu looked at me with a very disdainful expression. You just found out, huh? The ice and snow melt, and the dark clouds disperse. The sunlight shines on this peaceful and serene land, full of vitality and promise.